Hello everybody. How are we? Are we all good? Yeah. Brilliant. It's lovely to see you all. I'm glad you found the agreed formation for seating. You've spaced yourselves out beautifully. Thank you very much. My name's Kieran, and I'm here to host this panel, Mentor Me, Mentor You 2. For those of you who weren't here last year, don't worry. There's no catch-up materials you need to know. It's just a continuation of our discussions from last year, where we want to explore the idea of what being a mentor is to other people and what it's like being a mentee, and how as an industry we can try and facilitate that no matter where we are in the industry and at what stage we are in our careers. And we've got a fantastic panel that are going to help us explore that topic. Before we do, though, it's just good for us to get a measure of who's in the room. So I've got a quick straw poll to go through. These are either or questions, okay? So depending upon what it is you feel an affinity to, put your hand up. So the first question is, PJ Masks or Paw Patrol? Hands up for PJ Masks. Hands up for Paw Patrol. Ooh, okay, that's quite a good split there. That's good to know. All right. Dick and Dom in the Bungalow or SMTV Live? Hands up for Dick and Dom. I know, get tougher. Hands up for SMTV Live. That was fairly evenly split as well there. Okay, so there's some anarchy in the room for the Dick and Doms, but there's also the continuation legacy of the Ant and Dex. That's good to know. All right, Blue Peter or Magpie? Hands up for Blue Peter. Oh, aren't we all very middle class? Hands up for Magpie. Yeah, it's good to know where the rebels are in the room. Well done. All right, okay. This is going to be a toughie. Mr. Ben or Bagpuss? Oh, you can't vote twice. Hands up for Mr. Ben. Hands down, hands up for Bagpuss. Okay, I think I was... Of course. What are you even talking about, Kieran? All right, and then just to bring us on to topic, if you could choose a mentor, would you rather be mentored by Bernard Cribbins or Floella Benjamin? Hands up for Floella Benjamin. She is alive, it does help. Hands up for Bernard Cribbins. Some of you have got more chance of that happening. You're quite right. Brilliant. All right, that's good. So it's a fairly evenly split room. Well done. You've all passed the test. I'm now going to introduce our panel and we'll move on to some mentorship. So we'll start at the far end. Vanessa, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are?
Hi everyone, thank you for coming along. It's very exciting to see you all. My name's Vanessa Amberley. I had to write it down as well, just in case I forgot. Isn't that sad? I've worked in the industry for over 30 years, starting out as a freelancer, and then more recently I spent 10 years in BBC Children's as a staff member, and just recently I've gone back out into the freelance world. Very exciting. I'm working part-time for Sky Kids, 1 day a week with plus 3K animation, and also any other ad hoc projects. I've worked as a scriptwriter, script editor, producer, showrunner, exec, genre lead, whatever that was, across animation and live action. I'm absolutely passionate about quality writing for children's, particularly the youngest age. My specialism is actually preschool, and also making sure that we're helping nurture new talent. So hopefully we'll be able to sort of talk a little bit about that in the panel today. And also sort of now seeing the sort of average age group in this room. Any of you who is a preschooler, late 1980s, early 1990s, yes, I was Peggy Patch's friend on BBC Playdays, The Patch Stop. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you for being here, Vanessa. Samita, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Samita. I wrote and voice acted for Paper Owl's show Pablo, and then recently I was a neurodivergent mentor for Paper Owl's work experience scheme, Pablo Academy, which was to recruit neurodivergent animators who are new to the industry. I'm autistic, and I co-create spaces for autistic young people, so a lot of my work is to do with creating spaces where people feel like they have permission to be themselves.
Fantastic, thank you. And Shay?
Yes, hello. My name is Shay Odesanya. I am a freelance writer, as it says on the screen there, or there for you, because there's one here for us as well. I've written mostly in animation and also some live action as well for preschool and also for older age kids. I got my start through the BBC Writers' Room when they had the comedy room. I sent in one of my scripts, and they said, "Yeah, we'll like you. You can come and write some stuff for us." So I've worked on shows like JoJo and Gran, Odo, Milo, Peppa Pig. I'm also starting to write with Kieran on the new series of Mr. Bean, the animated series, which is quite fun. That show's been on, not the animation, the live action one. Actually, I was born in 1991. I think it came out in 1989, roughly that time period. So it's a bit weird working on a show that's older than you are. But yeah, it's fun to do. It's fun to give back. I watched a lot of stuff when I was a kid because we had a TV and I didn't like going outside very much. So the TV was my view into the world. So I like giving that stuff back to the new generation.
Fantastic. So you can see we've got some people from very different experiences and very different stages in their career. So we want to sort of start the conversation by just asking what mentorship means to you and what your experiences of being a mentor or a mentee have been in the industry. So let's go, Vanessa, what do you feel about the subject in general?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Probably thinking sort of more from the industry side of things, because obviously I worked for 10 years at the BBC, and like Shay said, we did a lot of work at BBC Children's with BBC Writers' Room. I know their sort of format has changed, but at the time, when I was there were a lot of schemes that they did, like bring on new comedy writers or writers from theatre. They set up writers' residentials as well. So I worked an awful lot on those and hopefully set people on their right trajectory, and in touch with quite a lot of them still as well. And I think that's where, when you're working with a big corporation, that's where you get a lot of that support. And I know it's very different sort of from a freelance side of things. But equally, when I worked freelance as a producer or as a showrunner, I was always very keen to sort of like meet new writers, make sure that there was a real team feeling with the more experienced writers and the newer writers, and that they could support each other. And I feel that's what mentoring is. It's also supporting and keeping that support going as well. Not just, as we say, it's not just for one project. It's not just like, right, drop them at the end of that project. Keep that contact going.
Absolutely. And Samita, you have a very different experience of being a mentor and being in the industry. What's your experience of the work so far?
As a mentor, so like as a mentor, not a mentee.
As a mentor, what do you currently do?
So it's a neurodivergent mental space, and I always put the word neurodivergent in there because it's particularly like for what I hope it to be is like to create a space where I sort of recognise neurodivergent beingness, I guess, from my own experience being neurodivergent, and mirror some of those things back. And it's sort of a place where I can sort of notice things where there might be access things where people might not recognise themselves, but also I guess it is similar to like a general mental space, but I guess it's just like neurodivergent flavoured, I guess. But yeah.
Fantastic. And Shay, what's your experience? You said you were at the writers' room, or were part of that?
Yes, I was in the writers' room, but before that, I had, I guess you could say, an informal mentee relationship where I was mentored, and my mentor is here, and he didn't realise that I was actually his mentee. It kind of took him by surprise when he found out. Was I his mentor? Okay, and just accepted. So we defined our relationship. I met him initially because I studied. I did a master's degree at UAL, and I asked my lecturer to just put me in contact with people who were in the industry already, and so they gave me his email, and it was really just establishing that relationship where I could ask him just probing questions, ask him for advice, what it's like, and just help. And he helped me discover what kind of writer I was and what kind of writer I wanted to be. So that kind of relationship where it's not really a means to an end where you have a destination you want to get to. It's just knowing another person who can guide you and just be there to offer you some kindness, some kind words and support. It actually helped me a lot because I went through a lot of rejection. But just having someone in your corner who can support you and who knows you was really, really fruitful for me.
Fantastic. And Samita, you said something earlier on about whether it was your experience as a mentor or as a mentee that we wanted to hear about. how has your experience as a mentee informed how you might mentor others? Is that something that was useful to you? Or did you learn from being a mentee that what you needed to do as a mentor?
So my brain is like mentor, mentee.
Yes, I know.
Like,
I manatee. Yeah.
yeah, like I think every sort of mentorish experience has been like quite or like very different, because obviously it like when you have a communication with a completely different person, it's always going to be different. And I think because like I've like spoken to people from like various different places in different contexts, but like I think I bring everything from all of those things to like any communication that I have. So like I find it hard to separate like this is a thing from this industry and like I'll only talk about those things and like other things. So I guess like like in like well in the context of this industry, like when I first started writing for Pablo, I was co-writing with Andrew Brenner, and like that ended up like similar to what you're saying, it ended up being like an informal mentorship, and so there's things that I carry from that, but also my experience of getting or like trying to get disability support at university, and like there's I've had like positive experiences and I've had experiences which just weren't suited to me, and I think I learned a lot from the things that didn't work, and in order to like, and the things that did work, in order to sort of think what space would I like when Paper asked me to do the neurodivergent mental thing, I kind of was thinking what sort of space would I like to create, and what is important and what do people need, even if they don't know that they need it.
Yeah, that's really true, because I think there's a lot of the time you're just trying to find a mentor, any mentor, and it's clear that the right connection is more important necessarily than perhaps just having the mentor in place. Because I think one of the questions that we've been talking about is whether or not a mentor should be, why you want a mentor, is it to get you work? And I think sometimes there's an aspect, there's a kind of a, what is the purpose of you being mentored and why are you asking for that mentor to give you help? I mean, Vanessa, what do you feel about that relationship between, obviously you were in a position whilst at the BBC and possibly now as well, where you can lead directly to work. Is that sometimes where people are coming to you for? And is it hard to distinguish when people genuinely want to be mentored and when people want a contact?
Yeah, and I think it kind of also depends on the project and everything, because yes, probably a lot of people come and go, yes, can you mentor me, and then you can get me on those projects, you know. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. So try it, do it. Yeah. But equally, for example, I was the exec on Jojo and Gran Gran, and we set up a mentor scheme on that specifically to make sure that we got that authentic voice in the writing. Because, you know, it was about that Caribbean community in London, and we wanted to make sure that our writers were from that community, bringing that absolute authenticity to it, but maybe we're not as experienced writers. So we did set up a sort of quite formal mentorship, and that's the difference as well. You might have some that are slightly more formal than others that are a little bit more sort of, you know, generalized, and you don't necessarily realize you're mentoring them, or they don't necessarily, like Shay, you said, you know, you don't necessarily know you're the mentee or whatever, but you can, I think, on project, and equally as a freelancer, particularly as a sort of producer or series producer, you have that authority to be able to set those up, you know, and set up those slightly more formal mentorships. And I think also you kind of had that responsibility as well.
Yeah, because we were discussing earlier on as well in whether or not we would feel comfortable being mentors to people. And Shay, you were mentioning that you felt, I still feel quite new to the industry.
Still very much a newbie.
But does that mean that you feel that you don't have things to share yet, or is it more about a confidence of, actually, I don't feel I have the authority to share those things?
I guess it's the latter, because we think if you're an older established writer that you've got that position of authority where you can help people attain certain goals, and I wouldn't want to disappoint anyone in that respect, but I'd be very comfortable just having a talk with people who were in my shoes, because I know what it's like to be a very new writer into the industry for the first time and not knowing who to talk to or where to go, even how to approach people. So the very little things, just helping people build relationships and just helping people feel comfortable in being themselves, I think is very important, because you might tend to think that you need to have some kind of persona or you need to establish some kind of brand in order to sell yourself to other people. But the thing that people want to know is who you are, because they're going to be working with you foremost and fundamentally. It is also about what you write, obviously, but it's about you, because a lot of your writing is going to come from your experience, your background, your history, your view of the world. So being able to inform people of that, and also being comfortable within yourself to be yourself, your authentic self around people, is really helpful, because fundamentally it's about establishing connections and relationships with people. It's not necessarily about, okay, I'm going to pitch that person my script or my project. I never had that expectation, even though I was told to, so that's probably a bad thing on my part. But I just wanted people to get to know me, and then I could get to know other people, because fundamentally it's just building that bond, which is the most important step, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of defining those expectations for yourself and for the person who is either being mentored or you're mentoring is very useful. Because I think we were discussing, there is a feeling that mentors, are wise people who've been in the industry, but there's a real need as well for peer-to-peer mentoring in this community, where you are not just sharing or giving advice. It's about sharing experiences and looking for reassurance, or looking for a sounding board on a situation you may have. How do you go about finding the right mentor for you? Vanessa, do you have any tips for that? If someone approaches you, how do you kind of know if they're the right person, or they may be better looking for somebody else, or how does that work for you?
I suppose it sort of depends from my point of view. If people contact me, and I'm very happy for people to contact me and send me sample scripts. I suppose because I've got quite a wide network in the industry and everything, and sort of understand projects that are going on at the moment or whatever, I will read what they write, and I will happily send back some feedback and sort of give them some pointers as well, just to sort of say, well, I think your style of writing would suit this. I think you need to sort of work on this type of thing. And does that? I want to find out about the person though as well, because like as Shay says, I want that person to be writing authentically, and sometimes people write what they think you think they should write, as opposed to what they really write and what they really how they really do write, because you do want that variety of voices on a series. You don't want everything to be bland and one voice, do you? So going back to the question, I think from my point of view, don't be frightened to contact people in the industry. Do the classic thing, look, see who's making what. Do you think that your sense of humour suits it, or do you think your sensibilities or your background or whatever? And if they're making that, maybe they'll make something else of the same ilk. Or do keep up with what's going on in the industry, and don't be frightened to reach out to people.
Fantastic. And Samita, when you're mentoring people, what are the sort of things that you try and achieve with them? How do you manage people's expectations, and how do you manage them?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily like achieving something, but it's sort of just being there, I guess. And I think like it's sort of like initially it was just important for me to to provide a space where I was unmasking, where I was explicit about my neurodivergencies, about my experiences and things. Also in my beingness. So like I will create a space where I'm comfortable to stim, so that like if they did want to, they can sort of see their communication style mirrored, and to sort of bring those things into conversations around things, because that actually changes the conversations a lot, and like things get brought up, especially when you're mentoring people who maybe aren't as used to talking about those things, or like have only just started learning about what those things mean. And I guess like it's important to like for it to be like, I guess I have certain things that I do in relation to what I might, it's sort of like just like providing opportunities for processing. So like it's very different for different people, because different people want the space to be something different. For some people it's just a processing space where like just being in the space helps them to understand how they feel and think about the week. For some people it's a check-in, and so it's like more structured about like joys and challenges and things like that. But I think for me what's important is that like what I've noticed from what I've needed is that sometimes when there's a problem or when something goes wrong, it's harder to get support if like no one's been with you on that journey. And so like that's why I think it's like mentorship's important, because if you have someone there that's been checking in with you, even if like everything's going great, which it has been for the people that I've been mentoring, it's still been useful when something comes up, and then it's just a lot easier because I can sort of provide more options, and I don't have to, you don't have to rely on someone who's already struggling to have to then do the communication of all of that stuff because I've been with them.
Yeah, amazing. So, Shay, you were saying that your mentorship was kind of not defined in the first instance. The person who was mentoring you didn't even know you were there, or didn't even know that was the room. It's very hard to imagine you weren't there, Shay. Sorry. But in terms of approaches, what's worked well for you in terms of finding mentors and looking for those mentors? Is it a formal approach? Is it a more casual striking up a conversation? What's a good way that you found for finding the right mentor for you?
Well, for me, it's just striking up a conversation with people, because I think sometimes what puts people off with mentoring, what put me off when I was asked to do a mentoring or something, was that I don't know what they want me to deliver for them, and I'm not sure if when they attain that goal, what kind of relationship they want afterwards, because you might just think once they get what they want, then they're going to move on to someone else, which, fair enough if that's what they want. But for me, I think the most important thing is just to touch base with another person. And you don't know where those kinds of relationships can take you, because if you get someone to know who you are, and then they can help you know other people, and it's a really nice way of widening the net, and also, not pulling up the drawbridge behind you, but also extending it so that you can help someone else to the position where you are. And it's just the most fundamental thing is just being yourself and getting to know your mentor as well, because then when your mentor knows you, they can then adjust how they would help you along your journey as well. They can point you in certain directions where you might not have been aware that you can go down that avenue. I mean, and when I was studying for my screenwriting degree, a lot of my cohorts didn't think that children's writing was a possible avenue towards them. They would all go for theatre or go straight to television or the cinema and making films, because that's where all the big headline stuff is. But working in children's media has been such a great opportunity for me, and just a field to work at, because everyone's really nice. There's really no room for ego here, because we're all just trying to make stuff for children. If you think you're the most important thing or most important person in the room, you're not. It's the kids, because they're the ones who are going to watch these stories and enjoy these stories. So I think, the most fundamental thing, just going back to the central point, be yourself. Trust that. Be able to trust someone that you can let them know who you really are, because like Vanessa said, it's really important to be able to develop someone. So you want to know who they are authentically, then you're able to cater your mentoring experience to help that person, whereas someone else might require a different advice. You can gauge your mentorship to specific individuals to help them attain their specific individual goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Vanessa, you mentioned at the BBC, obviously there are more formal mentorship schemes within that corporation. What do you feel has worked best in your experience? Is it like having a year-long scheme where you know what you're building towards and what the obligation from both parties, or is it a kind of more ad hoc every few days, or is it there's probably a place for all of them, which I think is probably the right answer? But what, in your experience, what have you found has been most rewarding as a?
Yeah, you've answered the question.
I'm good at that.
I suppose there's that thing where when you step into these sort of, particularly as I say, it was the writer's room, and as I say, it was when I was working at the BBC. I think it's changed its sort of style at the moment, but I like to be able to have then something to offer at the end of it, because I did feel like, it was great going to the sort of, we did the sort of speed meets, didn't we? And, Shay, I've met you on those writers' rooms. But it was lovely to also be able to say, great, we've put you through all of this. You've stepped into the BBC, which can be quite scary, and there's and you're sitting around and you go, hello, my name's, but then it was lovely to be able to have those projects to offer. And that was, I think, when I was working in BBC Children's, we kind of knew up front, we were like, okay, we know we're going to be able to offer 5 scripts there, or we're going to be able to offer, a couple of sketches there or something like that. And that's, I felt from my point of view, it was a really nice sort of thing to be able to do. But equally, you know, I think it's also managing expectations, and I think, you know, we'll probably use that phrase far too often, but I think it is true. You know, you sometimes have to step into the room and go, I've got nothing at the moment, but, you know, I am here for you. And I have people that I've met through BBC Writers' Room who've gone on to, you know, great successes, and they're still in touch with me, and every now and again they'll drop me a little email or a little text or something, you know, going, I'm just working on this, and, you know, let's have a coffee. And I think, wow, and I'm so proud of them. It's like having my own children. I'm so proud of them and everything. But also it's that lovely thing where you have that touch point. And I think, you know, I think that's lovely. And then when you see them go on to success and you come to places like this and you go, oh my goodness, you know, we first met when you know. And so, yes, going back, it is a mixture of the two. It is. But I think it's that thing where some people you will have that connection with as well. You know, at the end of the day, you can't force a connection with somebody. And some people you'll get on really, really well with. You'll bounce ideas and that type of thing, you know. And other people, it'll be a slightly more formal, you know, this is what we need from this and that type of thing. So I suppose it's just being open. If you're going to be a mentor, just be open to what you can offer.
Absolutely, and we've talked a little bit about how mentees can find mentors. How do someone who wants to be a mentor to others, how do you put yourself out there, and how much of that is about being proactive from your perspective to encourage people to be approachable in that first instance? I mean, that's kind of a more general question for everybody, really. If you are somebody who wants to mentor others, how do you set up your stall? Smita, what would you say? How do you encourage people to approach you if they want to be in your industry in your way?
Well, I guess there's like I see like a stage before that of like figuring out that like it's something that could be valuable for someone else. And I think like having experienced a lot of like brain things and like having self-managed a lot of those things, I guess I kind of realised that, oh, this could be a really like if I had known this thing before, then that would have been really useful, and which is why like passing on those things through mentoring people has been really positive. But also I think like generally if people have like a particular experience where they have been sort of self-coping a lot of things, and it's like that it like is like to be able to see that that's a valuable thing, that is like, yeah, I'm not sure I have like a specific answer to your question, but like it's just making me think of that. And I think people don't value that enough. And it probably took me some time to think, oh, actually, this is something that can be really helpful to other people. And yeah, I think
it's true. I think you sometimes you don't appreciate your own experiences and don't value them as much as other people might value learning about them. You kind of go, oh, that's just what I did, but actually, just what you did has provided stepping stones that others can follow should they wish.
Well, yeah, because there's like, you know, there's training and things like that, and there's like studies and all of these things. But if you have that experience, like which has just come from your like a brain being a brain, like getting you through certain situations in very different circumstances, it's like that stuff is valuable to like to support other people.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
just sort of going back to what I said sort of near the beginning about it being a responsibility, I think, of production as well. I think, you know, from my point of view as a series producer or exec or showrunner or script editor, you know, bring that to the table straight away. Come on, say to the team, come on, let's bring on some new voices. Let's make sure we identify some mentors. And that can be somebody who is sort of fairly new so that they can help new writers sort of navigate their way through it. But equally, somebody who you know is really experienced and actually going to be able to, you know, guide and support those new writers.
Absolutely. And Shay, if you were going to step into the role of a mentor, what would you do to make sure that people were feeling that you were approachable and open for business in that way, I suppose?
Just wear a very friendly smile and just wave and just let people know that they can come over and talk to me, I suppose.
Sounds good.
Yeah, just, I mean, I guess the thing with mentors and mentees is it's very nerve-wracking for both parties because you're not sure what your expectations are and you're you can be very fearful of failing to meet those expectations. So if you're a mentee and you don't feel like you've got anything to show your mentor, then you feel like you've wasted their time. And on the flip side, if you're a mentor and you don't feel like you've got anything to deliver to your mentee, you can feel like you're wasting their time. So I think just having someone who you can touch base with, as you said, Vanessa, that you can just get in touch with them every once in a while, just let them know how you're doing. Or as you say, Samita, you can be a mentor to someone who has similar needs that you also have as well, and you can create a space where you feel safe to be yourself, and that you don't have to feel like you're a burden to anyone else. So I think because it's nervous for all parties involved, and it's okay to acknowledge that, and then you can actually be very comfortable with your vulnerabilities, and you can just trust each other that you want something out of this, but you're not there to exploit the other person. You're there to form a bond that can lead to somewhere, and at the base level, it's someone that you know, and just knowing another person is in itself a really good step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's also aspects of what you want your mentor and what you want them to achieve. Because we were discussing there's kind of almost 3 stages. There's the navigating of the industry, which can be quite obtuse from outside as to how I get around the place. There's also mentorship in terms of how I craft a script, how I improve my actual writing. And then there's mentorship in just my background or my experience of being in this industry is specific to my background, and how can I help others who've had that come in my footsteps. When you're a mentor or a mentee, what is it that is the most valuable for you, Shay? When you were a mentor, was it how do I get into the industry, or is it how do I improve my writing, or is it how do I, as a person who comes from a particular background, find ways through it?
As a mentee, I think it's the latter two that are most important. How do I improve my writing, and how do I just find my footing, as opposed to how do I get that specific show or that specific position? That's the approach I took to it, because I was still trying to figure out what my voice was as a writer. Because I think in being swamped in the industry, you tend to forget, and I tend to forget. I hate using this word, even describe myself, but we are artists, we are storytellers. Even at saying that word, I just think, my mouth. But it's true. We want to tell stories, and we all have our certain perspectives that we want to share with people. I mean, when you're creating something, you want to create it to share to someone else. You don't want to just bottle it up inside, because then you're not communicating anything. For me, writing is a very healthy way of self-expression, because I don't like talking very much, even though I'm doing it on stage right now. I just prefer to write and have other people speak my words for me. But just fundamentally knowing that having someone else guide you, and for example, with my mentor who's there right now, what I would do is, my friends and I from our degree would put on scratch nights. So we would have 5-minute short stuff, something that we were working on, either a sketch or something that we were working on for a longer time, so maybe a short bit or something, and we would just invite people to come down and see us. And my mentor came down to pretty much most of them, if not all of them, and he could see how I was developing as a writer, and he would give me some very helpful feedback, whether or not it's funny, which is what I was going for, because I was writing comedies at the time, and still do. But no, it's just having someone who can track your development and just give you some feedback of what they thought, of how they felt the room, and they can just ask you what you were going for, because you might discover something about yourself that you don't see, but someone else can see, oh, I think you're more naturally gifted towards this part of this, and this is more naturally inclined to your voice. So having someone who can actually watch you grow and then help you in your growth is really, really important, because what in my experience when I was studying is that there's a lot of expectation to get an agent at this certain stage in your career, and then write your first show at this certain stage in your career, and then be a head writer at this certain stage in your career. And when you fail to meet those markers, that can be really, really damning for someone. You just feel like you're failing. You just feel like you want to give up. So I guess someone who reminds you that there's the joy in the craft itself, just doing it. That enough is what's going to sustain you, because you're not going to be successful on the first day, or maybe you're not in the first 5 or 10 years. I mean, look at Alan Rickman. He didn't become a big actor until he was in his late 40s, when he finally did Die Hard. So just enjoying the craft, I think, is not something that we have to it's something that we tend to forget. It's something that you have to remind yourself, because you want to tell stories to other people, also because you feel the need to do it as well. And you should enjoy being a storyteller, be you a voice actor or a writer or a producer or a director or whoever. The simple joy of doing it is what should sustain you, because it's going to have to sustain you for a long time.
Yeah, I'm on the Alan Rickman career path. My Hollywood movie, I've got another 3 years, so, you know. So Vanessa, from a production side of you, when people are approaching you for mentorship, is it more about the industry, how I get into how I navigate my way through that? Is it more about the craft of writing? Is it more about just support within that, which is not necessarily specific towards a particular end? What were you being approached for more often than not, and what did you find was most useful to help with?
Well, it's quite interesting, like Shay said about people sort of going, oh, you're going to write for children's, and I've worked all my career in children's, and you kind of go, and if you've read the handbook for this year, I do write, we don't write in crayon, because sometimes you do feel that people go, oh, I've had a baby, I want to write for preschool now, and they've written sort of like some murder thing, and you're like, and then they'll go, oh, this is really funny, and you get the script, and you kind of go, so a lot of people are writers in grown-up TV. Don't say adult TV because it always sounds dodgy. But in grown-up TV, and then they, come into the world suddenly of children because they have their own children, which is great. And I've mentored many successful people that have gone from writing Hollyoaks to writing Way Below. But so you get a lot of that. I get a lot of people. Thinking they can write straight away, and some people can, but thinking they can write straight away from a grown-up into a preschool sphere. So you would then definitely have to put that sort of mentorship on them. But again, you sort of see, oh, actually, there's a little spark in there. A lot of people, yes, they think that if they start out their writing career, it'll be easier to write for preschool because they've watched a preschool show. And so a lot of them will come in that way. No, exactly. Shay's like going, it's the hardest thing in the world. No B plot, please. So you get various people, and then you get, and you know what? It's the people who have are just brimming with enthusiasm. That enthusiasm gets me every single time. Somebody who's really enthusiastic to learn, enthusiastic about what's out there, what's on television, what they like, who they admire, what scripting they admire, that type of thing. For me, that will always make me go, great, let's bring this person on, let's really work with this person. And another thing is, like, just remember, as a writer, you are part of a massive team. And I think, Shay, you were sort of saying this, you're part of a big team. So that being mentored, you're part of that team. You're part of that team who are the writers, who are the directors, who are the producers, who are the dubbing mixers, who are, that whole team. And that's a really lovely part to be. And, being mentored and being a mentee and being part of that team, be proud of it as well. And I think, that's what a mentor can bring to somebody and go, like, actually, you are part of this team. We will look after you because we want you to succeed as part of this team, but we want you to succeed for us because we want this project to succeed.
Amazing. And Samita, when you're mentoring people, are they asking you more about how to get into the industry? Are they asking you more about how to create scripts that are better, or is it more about how did you do it and can you show me the way that you did it?
Well, I guess it's a different kind of space, and I'm mentoring animators, and I'm not an animator. So it's more like I'm sort of doing things like facilitating communication, for example, and I'm interested in sort of just like I check in with everyone and ask about joys and challenges, and if there are things that come up where I feel like that's a thing that could be a lot easier, I might suggest some access things. And I think there's one thing where helping people to self-advocate or to like grow confidence in and like to justify the things that they want to communicate where people might hesitate to do that, but also as well as empowering people for self-advocacy, I think there's something about interdependence, and like I think that some people feel like, I don't know, some sort of like shame of asking for help, or like and I feel like with the facilitating communication thing, it's like I understand what that can be like, and actually, if like to someone else, they can just send an email to someone and communicate something and it's done, and then something can happen. Why wouldn't you help support that rather than like strive for like, oh, let's do everything ourselves and then like have someone stress about it for like a longer amount of time, and then maybe that communication doesn't happen, maybe that support doesn't get in place. So I guess like it's a different, like I'm not mentoring people to like I'm not do it like it's to because I'm not an animator, but I guess all of that feeds back into the animation work that they do hopefully, maybe, I don't know, I'd have to ask them.
But I think that's quite a useful thing that you said about people don't like to ask for help. I think that's absolutely true, regardless of what your background is. It feels like, actually, am I failing in something? Is it the mission of weakness? Is it something? Whereas I think it's one of the joys of mentorship is that you might be asking for help, but you don't even know what you're asking for, really, a lot of the time. And you just know you need something, and it's the relationship between you and your mentor that hopefully helped find that thing for you and put it right. Are there different mentors for different facets of the work that you do? Is it useful to have one mentor who just looks after you regardless, or is it go, actually, do you know what? It's useful to have a more long-term mentor who I touch base with. It's useful to have one mentor who I can get some tips on the craft of the writing, and there's others who can help me navigate the industry, or is it you should probably keep the focus on one mentor at any time? What's your feeling, Vanessa? Is there too many mentors? Can you have too many?
I don't think you can. And I don't see why somebody, a mentee couldn't have two mentors. There's no reason why. Because, as I say, there are so many different projects potentially out there. You might have someone who, is a mentor in writing comedy, for example, and then you might go, right, actually, I've been successful as a mentee, writing comedy, but I'd really like to have a go at drama now. So you might want another mentor there, but equally go back to your original comedy mentor. I don't think there are too many out there at all. And it's as Shay said, it's a vulnerable position to be in as a writer. I don't know, whenever you go to, a series starting and you have a writer's workshop and there are all these people in there, who sort of have been writing for years and years and years, and are sort of the voices in the room, and then you might be a new person, you're like, oh, I don't know what to say, and what if I ask that? And it's like, do I write in final draft? Do you want me to put a page number on? You're going to go, oh, I'm not going to say that. So having that sort of mentor is great in that situation as well. I kind of went off on a tangent.
No,
but we said tangents were all right, didn't we? We said tangents were all right, yeah.
So they were essential, in fact. So it feels like there's different forms of mentors at different times, and probably for different places in your industry and different times in your career as well. It feels like a good time to open it up to the audience. So if anybody has any questions or any comments that they would like to share, please do put your hand up, and we will hear what the feeling in the room is. Sir, at the far left, thank you for stepping into the breach. It's okay, there's a microphone coming your way. If you wouldn't mind just telling us your name and where you're from, and then ask your question.
Okay, hiya, I'm Michael Gandam. I'm from Arcus Animation Studios up in Newcastle. I wanted to ask the panel, and it kind of links in with what Izzy and David were talking about last night, into the mentoring side of things. And with that conversation about, say, the education system not nurturing young people and children as it perhaps should, I wondered what the panel thought about what the industry could do, or what larger organisations could do to perhaps step in there, giving children and young people the option and letting them see the new horizons that they could potentially kind of get into. Because it feels like we're talking about mentoring people who, at the minute, who are somewhere along the line to a career, but there's a lot of kids and young people who don't realise that they could do this as well.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm happy to pick up.
Go for it, Vanessa.
Yeah, just to start off with. Absolutely, and I think I think industry can help a lot, but I think as individuals we can as well, because yes, it's giving up your time sometimes. For example, last Friday, I was at a London University on their finals of their MA screenwriting course, and they had to do some speed pitching. And there was myself and 3 other people from the industry. We gave up our day to go and listen to these students and then give them a little bit of feedback and everything. And I think, from my point, yes, it's sort of like, it makes me feel good, but they were so receptive to it. And I think if people are willing to give up their time and do that, again, industry, I think, can help. And I know, again, sort of referring, when I was back at the BBC, there used to be a lot of going into universities and talking about how they got into television and what opportunities there were. But I think it is that responsibility of us now working in the industry. I think we can all potentially sort of do that and just sort of strike up those conversations with not just universities, with schools and colleges and that type of thing as well.
Yeah, so we've been talking about, as you say, people who are kind of already in the industry, how they mentor each other.
If I want to pick up on that one as well, I think it's really important that people know that there is a space for them to work in these kinds of industries, in this kind of industry in particular. I mean, I was always kind of the oddball because I just liked reading books and watching cartoons and comics. I just thought that would be a great thing to do. But even when I was growing up and being educated, it wasn't very clear to me that there was a space for someone like me, that, as a black person, to actually be on the writing side of things. You'd always see, what we are stereotypically supposed to be in the media industry, which is, kind of on the face of it, either as a performer or as an athlete or something like that. But being a writer was not something that I thought that I could do. So I think for the next generation, the important thing is letting them know that there is a space for them here as well, and that they can be either in front of the camera or behind the camera. They can participate in this place as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think what we've been talking about is the fact that, people who already know they want to be in the industry, how do we mentor them? Or what about those people who don't know the industry is even open to them? How do we get them involved and interested before they're even thinking about where they may or may not go? Smita, what's your experience of that? Of engaging with even younger people and bringing them through into...
Well, I guess, it's important to help people to actually, understand who they are and, what their skills are. And I think, from everything that, goes wrong, when you're younger, you feel like yesterday when we talked about exams and stuff, it feels that when you're young, it feels like it's, the worst thing that is happening. And, I think, but from every one of those experiences... it can teach you something about the way that you think and that's once you understand the way that your brain functions, you can find these ways in of how can I use this thing, what can I do, that. It can be really powerful to understand the things that the ways, because then the opposite happens and you can find yourself in places where you're using those things and I think and then if you go through that process yourself where you've gone through that understanding, then you'll be able to do that for someone else and help someone else to be able to to go through that similar process. So I think just maybe spaces which can help people to figure out who they are and what their thinking style is from different experiences that they've had.
Amazing.
And if I could just add on a little bit to what you said as well, because of what you said reminds me of what Izzy said yesterday in her kind of pre-keynote speech, that young people and children today are mostly seen through what exam results they get, or the numbers or letters on the paper. I mean, we've got we're in an environment where the most important thing that our leaders, the powers that be, think is that we should all be learning maths, and they're trying to fit us into these molds rather than discovering what we can bring and nurturing that innate talent within people, as opposed to just trying to crush them down to what society needs us to be. We should be nurturing their gifts and helping them figure out what they can bring to society and letting them know that there is a place for them and that they can contribute in their own unique way.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, my mum and dad and my brother and my sister-in-law are all accountants, and they're genuinely stunned I make a living doing markets, genuinely. And I think there is there's people who go, really? People pay you to do that? And you go, yes, yeah, they do, and it's fun as well. And I think bringing that, understanding that there is options like that to children earlier is absolutely a valid thing.
My parents are Nigerian, and they just think, we like what you do, but can you do a doctorate?
Yeah, well, mine are Irish. Exactly. We came over here, and what you doing? You're writing cartoons. Yes, Rachel.
Just a quick question. What can we do to encourage the potential mentors in the room to feel that this might be something that they could try? And I'm wondering if it's something like be open to 2 or 3 conversations with somebody. But I think sometimes there can be a sense that if you're offering to mentor, you're taking on someone for the rest of their career or your life, which is just scary. And there must be boundaries that you can set to make this a manageable thing. You've got an income to earn, and you've got your own stresses and strains. So what did the panel suggest about how they can set parameters for this relationship so that it's manageable and productive, and it comes to an end?
So, yeah, okay. Vanessa, in terms of when someone approaches you, the first thing you don't really want to do is go, well, okay, I'll do it, but on these conditions. So how do you politely come to that consensus of this is what I define it as and this is what my obligation to you will be, and vice versa?
Well, again, it's that managing expectations. But also because I work in that production side, you can kind of do that within that sort of production framework. But from my point of view, I'd be really open to people saying, look, when you next got a series up and running and you're looking for writers, I'll write on it if you let me mentor. No, but people coming to me and just saying that I'd be really interested in mentoring somebody new on a project. So when you're next working on a project, please say that. And I think I would then make sure that the production was supporting that mentor as well as supporting the mentee as well, because you don't want, as you say, Rachel, you don't want so much pressure on that mentor that they're going, oh my goodness, now what am I going to do? How am I going to get away from this? I've got my own scripts to write. I've got, the school run to do. So I think that's, again, those honest conversations to have up front, what everybody wants to get out of it as well, but and for production to support them.
Yeah. And Samita, do you set boundaries with your mentees when you're working with them?
Well, I guess... Sorry, I'm a question behind, so can I respond to the...
Yeah, of course you can.
Is that okay? Thanks. So I guess 2 things that I think of a lot is capacity and energy, and those things can sort of work together, because I could be low capacity, but then energy can give me more capacity depending on what the situation is. And so I think that's something I'm conscious of just through my life anyway, but for this space as well. And I think just thinking about what can I take on, and it's not just okay, I've got this time, I've got time to do a meeting here. I make sure that I've got time before that, because I need to be able to provide a space for that other person, and so and that's important for that energy, and so that it's not, I'm not very good at finishing sentences.
No, but that's really useful, because I think again, a lot of the time when you are mentoring, okay, I've got an hour, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Friday, but have you got the energy or the attention or the have you had the time to do it?
And your own after, so make sure there's a bit before it and after it, because otherwise because that's a holding space for someone else, and then you need to go back into your space after. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And Shay, if someone was to approach you to mentor them, would you be setting out boundaries? What sort of things would you be doing to ensure that it was you both knew what you were getting into?
Well, I think it would be fair to just be very clear of what I could help them with, and if I wasn't capable of fully meeting their needs, then I can, support them in the ways that I can support, but then also encourage them to find, another mentor who can do that for them. So yeah, I mean, we had a question about having more than one mentor. If that's what you need, you should have more than one mentor, because there are mentors who can help you in specific ways, and there will be mentors who can help you in other ways. And putting a burden on just one person to help you with all of your needs is not very fair to them, because they're going to be racking their brains about how they can help you and if they're going to fail you or not. So just being fair with what they want and also what you can deliver, so that you can adapt to each other's needs. I think that's the best way forward. Because even though my mentor is here, and I've got I guess more than one mentor, so you probably don't know that they are mentoring me. But that's just the way it's. I'm mentor by stealth. No, but the thing is that it's a nurturing relationship, and you want to help that person stand on their own 2 feet, so that you can feel. You can take pride in their success and know that you've helped them get there.
Yeah, Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you. We've got time for a couple more questions if anybody has another question they would like to ask us. Right in the middle. Thank you. Again, if you could just tell us your name and where you're from and then let us know the question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julia. I'm a talent exec for the BBC in Kids and Family. I think Vanessa and I just crossed over briefly. I was just wondering, I love the idea of bringing on people who are maybe not, super duper experienced, middle of their career, and then having them paired up with a mentor on a project. And I think that would really help us to kind of, widen out the scope of the people that we're hiring. But I wondered if there are situations where the mentors are paid. Have there been examples of where, if the BBC have had people on that are being mentored, it's a kind of scheme where, or, if there's lines in the budget?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's
Yes, they have in the past.
excellent. And has anyone had experience of that, on the panel separately to the BBC? Are there other places or schemes where mentors are paid for?
Well, yeah, I mean, Samita, do you have a salary to facilitate the mentorship that you do, or is it part of a wider job that you do?
Sorry.
So are you funded to facilitate the mentoring that you do, or is it an aspect of a wider job?
No, it's separate.
Right. So there is some funding available for mentors who can help bring people through the industry if they want to.
Is there funding for it?
Yes. Sorry. The question was: is an organisation paying for the mentorship?
Yes.
Yes. So there are ways in which you can.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the
No,
words.
that's absolutely fine. I was also trying to figure out the question as I asked 6 of them.
And I think also, again, it's going back to that responsibility, when you're putting your budget together, put a line in there for mentorship for the writing team. There's no reason why you can't put it in there from the outset, and don't just think of it as a tag on afterwards and going, we forgot that, let's sort of squeeze that in there and might be able to give them an extra £5. Make sure from the outset you are going, right, okay, this is what we want to do with our writing team.
Yeah.
Right?
Rachel. Can we have one more mic down the front? Thank you.
Rachel Morell, I'm executing this session. Just wanted to refer back to the fact that we set this up because there aren't enough mentoring opportunities for writers, particularly in this business. And so we wanted to create a sort of do-it-yourself scheme and provide some stories and some tools to help writers create their own opportunities. If we sit around and wait for mentorship schemes to happen, we'll all be dead. But what we can do is reach out to each other and have as many meetings here as possible, just with the person you're sitting next to. If you don't know them, introduce yourself, get that conversation going. Don't just talk to the people you already know while you're here. This is a really wonderful opportunity, and it only comes once a year.
It does. So with that in mind, please, if you haven't already, scan the QR code so that there's a mentorship toolkit there that if you are thinking of dipping your toes into this world, that there's some guidelines there for you. We are unfortunately out of time at the moment, so please do, though, continue these conversations outside of this room. Before we wrap up, I would just like to thank our panellists, Vanessa,
Thank you.
Samita, Shay. I'd also like to thank Chitra and Rachel for producing this. It's amazing.